covering all 4 major sports in the District of Champions. It's the DC Crossover Podcast with your hosts, Mike Cerrone and Ben Simpson.
Hello and welcome to episode number 107 of the DC Crossover. I am Ben Simpson. That is Mike Cerrone. So glad to have you with us on another episode. You can follow the show in a variety of ways on Twitter. You can follow the main show account at the DC Crossover for all the links. Every time we drop an episode, I always throw out the Spotify, the Apple, the YouTube, all that stuff is on the Twitter. So follow at the DC Crossover and at Cerrone16 for Mike's personal account. Also, give a follow and download The Contender. That's Contender with a K. There's an app there. It's free. You can listen to our show and many others. You can also give them a follow on Twitter and follow us on TikTok for those talkers out there at DC _crossover _podcast ___. That's what you have to do now in this day and age of internet where like so many accounts have been created at this point. You have to be like it's impossible to get the account you want. You have to throw numbers in there or underscores in there. It's just there's just too many. Like getting a Twitter handle nowadays, it's like impossible. And some people squat on them. Like they'll just get a Twitter account and they won't ever use it, but they'll just wait for the day that somebody else wants to try to use that account, and then they'll sell it to you. And that's a business for a lot of people. It's crazy.
Right. And that's the thing about these underscores and whatnot is because once you set it, you can't change it for 30 days at least. So I'm just like, geez, I mean, why did you suggest that? That's so dumb. So I ended up messing that up. But obviously, you can definitely follow the TikTok because that's where a lot of fun clips and, as Ben said, other types of clips that are on there as well. But definitely check out the TikTok at DC _crossover _podcast. But I'm lucky for Twitter that, none of my family members or any other Cerrones that are out there didn't really take that because I didn't have any problem doing that one. But it's just weird, man. It's weird when you try to get these different handles and whatnot, because when you're looking at that kind of stuff, like you said, people will literally sit on it. Like, for instance, it's the same thing as I know a podcast out there that was, they were thinking about doing a podcast because they were on a different show, and then they separated their podcast into something else, but someone already had that handle, so they had to go and buy it. And I'm like, oof. Why would you want to go and literally buy it? It's like, if you have the following already, then just make it yourself and just put a hashtag or something, not a hashtag, a underscore or something like that.
Throw in a number underscore. It's weird. It's because some people are also like, oh, if my handle has like a number in it, nobody's gonna want to follow me. It's like, who cares? I barely even look at the handles these days. Like, I don't care. Because people also have your handle and then you have the actual name for your account. Like, I don't know. It's all crazy. It's all crazy. Regardless, follow us on all those accounts.
Regarding buying and stuff like that for handles and whatnot, I have a real quick story from high school that actually reminded me of this. And I think you might have already told me a story about this. Maybe not. It might have been someone else because I talked to them about it. Like I said, it might have been you briefly recently. So the story is that when I was in high school, I was, a year younger than this one player. And so obviously he had the number first. And I said, hey, Frank. And his name was actually Frank. You don't see that name nowadays. I mean, you have Frank Robinson, Frank the Tank.
Man of larger character.
No, he was not.
That's if your name's Frank, I expect you to be about 5'5". I need you to be about 200 pounds. And I need you to look like you're 50, but you're like 15. But you have a weathered face,
Weathered face.
And you're
that's a good one.
And you wear a little newsboy hat, and it's like, that's Frank, man.
Yeah,
but Frank's a good guy. Frank will go out in the rain and pick you up if you need a ride. Frank will bring an extra hot dog for you at the ball game. He'll go buy an extra one. He'll be like, I know you said you weren't hungry. I did bring you a second one. You go, thanks, Frank. Frank is a great guy. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah. So Frank the Tank in this situation was not a great guy.
Right.
Because I said, hey, Frank, we're not close, but we're friends for the most part, kind of. And I said, hey, man, 16 is my number. I need 16, brother. Can you help me out? He was like, yeah, sure, Cerrone. Yeah, it's fine. Go ahead. You can take it.
That's a Frank move right there.
Yeah. He said, that's a Frank move. And all of a sudden, when it came down to it, that was during conditioning and stuff like that. So they were like, all right, here's jersey time. So all of a sudden they were like, all right, who wants jersey 16? Frank says, that's mine.
Ooh,
and all of a sudden I was like, Frank, like, what are you doing, man? We already talked about this. You know what he did? He flipped me the bird and told me to F off.
Wow, not a Frank move at all. I take it all back. That is not a Frank move at all.
I was like, dude, I didn't know this was like a joke. Like, no one's laughing because we're the only ones that talked about it. It wasn't like he went behind closed doors and told, Chris or some other dude over here, like, yo, I'm going to get Cerrone here, man. I'm going to lay one on him. All right. I was like, it was, yeah, Craig. I mean, literally, it was. I mean, that's pretty much what he was like in his head.
Rough.
No one laughed because no one got it.
Right.
And I was like, I just looked at him. I was like, dude, Frank, what are you doing?
What are you
Bro,
doing, Frank?
We had an arrangement. I had to be freaking 18.
You had a verbal commitment.
So no one knew if I was 10 or 18 because our stupid jerseys were the numbers were too bolded, weird. So like my family couldn't tell who I was because the guy who was number 10 was literally like the same size as me, and no one could tell who I was ever. I was so pissed.
Frank just had a killer season that year, number 16.
No, he rode the bench.
A bench rider too, and he didn't even. Yeah, that's just.
Oh, he was a pine pony. That's for damn sure.
Well, regardless, you can follow us on all those. So we should change our handle to Frank16. That's what you should change it to. A lot to get to on today's episode. We will definitely talk about the Masters. We'll do that later when we do our final lap segment. We've got some Nats to talk about, some Caps, of course, as they have about 10 games left before playoffs start. Wizards, not so much. Their season's done, and we don't give an S. A lot to get to on today's episode, so let's go ahead and get into the rewind, a chance to take a look at this past week. Fill in some gaps in case you missed some of these games along the way. We're covering all the teams that played. And we'll start with the Washington Nationals. Mike, 1-3 week for the Nats. Opening day series. And it did not start off great. Losing to the Mets on opening day 5-1. Patrick Corbin, 4 innings pitched, gave up 5 hits, a couple earned runs. Juan Soto with his first bomb of the season, the lone run for the Nats on opening day. Keeper Ruiz, though, nice game, 2 for 4. We'll be talking about all these numbers and stock up, stock down stuff later on. Friday, losing to the Mets again. Max Scherzer makes his glorious return to Nats Park. He got the tribute video on Thursday, of course, because there's no way they would play the tribute video on the day he pitched because the guy's a psycho, and he wouldn't have gone out and watched it. He would have been like, oh, screw this. I don't need any distractions. 6 innings, 3 earned runs, 6 Ks. Okay day for Scherzer. Josiah Gray on the other side had a little rough one. 4 innings, 4 earned runs. Benches cleared in this one. This was like 4 Mets hitters got hit or something like that. And after Cishek hit Lindor, benches cleared. It was a whole lot of nothing. The Nats aren't hitting anybody on purpose, trust me. They're barely finding the strike zone on purpose. It just ended up being that way. Josh Bell hits his first homer of the year off of his old pal Scherzer, 2 RBIs there. And Keeper Ruiz, 2 for 4 again. The guy's a machine. Saturday, losing to the Mets 5-0, shutout. This was an ugly one. Pete Alonso, the polar bear loser, hit a grand slam and shushed the crowd of 500 people that didn't care. Bassett threw a gem. 6 innings, 3 hits, no earned runs, and 8 Ks. This was a big off-season acquisition for the Mets, and he showed out. Yoan Adon, 4 1/3, 4 earned runs. Not a great day for him. Soto, couple knocks. And then last but not least, Sunday, finally a win. 4-2 win over the Mets. A 3-run 8th inning rally spurred by Lucius Fox and D. Strange Gordon and all the speed on the base paths. Nelson Cruz also hit his first bomb of the year. And our pal Fetty, not a bad day. 5 innings, 5 hits, 2 earned runs. The Nats, 1-3 week. Let's move on to some happier times. A great week for your Washington Capitals.
Well, the funny thing is I'm glad that you went through those little stats there, because the sole fact that some of us can't watch the game because we don't have cable. Right. So here we go. Washington Capitals, 40-22-10, 4th in the Metro Division, 2nd in the wild card, possibly about to be third in the Metro for the sole fact that we'll get to in a little bit, that the Pens have been struggling, but the Caps have not. 10 games to go. Wednesday, they beat the Tampa Bay Lightning 43 in a great game. Carlson with 2 goals and 2 assists. Third 4-point game of his career, which is awesome. Ovi reaches another milestone, 1,400 career points. Ilya Samsonov, 25 saves on 28 shots. So not a great game, but a very good offensive team in the Lightning, who have been struggling also recently. He did get three goals against him, but still not a bad outing by him. On Saturday, our arch rivals at PPG Paints Arena, they beat Pittsburgh 6-3. They did get 2 empty netters, so technically it was about 4-3. But they were down in this game at one point. Ovi with his 44th goal of the season. Tom Wilson scored his 22nd goal of the season. Another name that we haven't seen in a few years. He was probably still salty he did not get a ring. Marcus Johansson gets a goal. Dmitry Orlov, Kuzi, Faravari, they all scored. So scoring fest after the 2 empty netters late. Ilya Samsonov also played this game, stopped 29 shots to become the 10th goalie in team history with 50 career wins. On Sunday, they beat the Boston Bruins, which is probably the most impressive feat of the entire last week. Lars Eller scores the go-ahead goal. Also had an assist. Wilson with 4 goals in the 6 games. Wilson with 4 goals in his last 6 games. Reached 50 points for the first time in his career. Ovi with his 45th of the season and 775th of his career. And also Vitek Vanacek with a nice 30-save performance. So a very impressive performance on Sunday, yesterday, as we record this on Monday, with a 4-2 win over the Boston Bruins. Now they are 5 points back of Boston. I believe they are 4 points back of the Penguins because the Penguins did win yesterday to snap their 5-game skid. So overall, when you're looking at it right now, the Caps still in the fight to possibly play a different opponent, unlike what we saw last week. Now moving on to the Washington Wizards, who have their season ended in a great position in the standings.
Yeah. 35-47, the final record for your Washington Wizards. They finish in 12th place, so just outside the play-in, playoffs, all that garbage that's happening this week. Just not a whole lot to talk about here. Tuesday beat Minnesota 132-114. That was fun. Otherwise, 3 straight losses to end the year. Wednesday to the Hawks, Friday to the Knicks, Sunday to Charlotte. The 35-47 mark, I did want to just briefly mention when we look at the last couple of years' records, Mike. Last year, 34-38. 2019, 25-47. 2018, 32-50. I mean, this team hasn't won 40 games in about 5 years. I mean, it's just pathetic. It really is.
Yep. I mean, you're looking at it here, and that's the problem. And we don't have to get too far into this. Obviously, we could probably get into it maybe a week or two from now when we just have baseball going on. But
yeah,
it's the problem with this team is I don't think it's coaching. I think it's more so when it comes down to the structure. Which yes, we did have Ernie Grunfeld still late in the teens with the 2017, 2018, blah blah blah. Tommy Shepard has come in and he has done a few good moves, but like I texted you earlier personally, the biggest thing is they have to get a draft pick at some point that's going to be an impact player. You cannot keep going and trying to build your team around role players because that doesn't win games.
Right.
Though that wins you a game against Minnesota and a game against Dallas where you score 144 points. Then all of a sudden the next game you get blown out by 42 against the Celtics. So
right.
You're just looking at it and saying this is just a pathetic performance over the last 3 games. But overall, the season was already lost at this point.
Right. Yeah.
But,
I mean, Beal's been out forever. I'm with you. You got to, at some point, you got to be able to bring in a draft pick that is just an immediate impact guy, exactly like you said. Because we see those, and yes, obviously, like a guy like Cade Cunningham, pick number 1 overall. Like, all right, in order to get a guy like that, you're going to need the number 1 pick. But there are other guys making impact in this league that are top 10 picks that aren't necessarily number 1 pick. I mean, there are. So the key is you have to find them, and the Wizards just never seem to be able to find them. They find the project guys, the guys that steadily improve year to year. But okay, he goes from 6 points a game to 8 points a game. It's like, yeah, that's great for a role guy, but you can't make the playoffs with role guys. I mean, next year, all right, if Bradley Beal does stay, then we're talking about, Beal, Porzingis, Kuzma. I mean, that's not a bad group, but once you get past those three, it's like, all right, what else do we have here? I mean, Thomas
Right.
Bryant won't be on this team next year, that's for sure. We still don't really have much going on at the point guard position. I mean, we had to bring back frickin' Tomas Sandaransky. So yeah, they gotta make some moves, Mike. If they could get a decent point guard to go along with KP, Beal, and Kuzma, then we're talking about an actual pretty good lineup. We're talking about a pretty good team,
Right, right. And that's the biggest thing that I look at is you have to fill in those gaps. Now you sign Gafford, so you have Gafford. Like you said, I think I agree with you that Thomas Bryant won't be here next year, especially now that Porzingis is on the team,
Right.
And that he can play the center and the four. But I just think that, man, I'm thinking about it recently a lot more. I shouldn't say a lot more. I should say some. That if you can get an impact player through the draft, it's not going to break the bank for you. It's not going to cost you a ton. Because I've been saying for years now that, we need a big that can rebound and protect the rim. You got Gafford. He's not a huge big, but he can rebound and protect the rim. And then Porzingis can also shoot when he's healthy and different things like that. But the biggest thing that I look at is now there's two ways that you can build this team. Either you can go around and find that one superstar that's going to click with the rest of this team, or you can go and somehow get lucky with the lottery. This is why I always hated the lottery, because it should be like the NFL. If you want to tank. It shouldn't tank and then say, well, I guess you're going to get the 8th pick today, guys.
Right.
It just makes no sense.
That's tough.
It's a tough situation because you could have, two schools of thought when it comes to that, which I do as well. But I still think it's kind of stupid to have a lottery because the Wiz always get screwed.
Right. We haven't had a good lottery pick since probably Bradley Beal. I mean,
right. I mean, we had John Wall, Bradley Beal, Otto Porter, and Kelly Oubre. I think was a 5th overall, possibly. I'm not exactly sure. But you're just thinking about it right now, and you just have to get that other piece to help this team because Beal is going to go, and then we're going to be back to square one. And it's like we just wasted the number 1 pick overall with John Wall, the number 3 overall with Otto, and also Bradley Beal, and we just didn't go anywhere. We just went once again churning in the mud here with the tires, going to 47 wins or whatever, and making it to the second round against the Bulls. Or it's just typical. Dude.
We just haven't been a contender in forever. It feels like an actual contender, like since that series against Boston. I mean, that was it. That was the last time when Wall was here. That was the last time we actually were like, we have a chance to get to the NBA Finals. And it just hasn't been that way because the team just sucks. I mean, some impact guys around the league that were not top 5 picks. Franz Wagner from the Magic, number 8 overall. This guy averaged 15 a game. Now, Magic are terrible, but still. Josh Giddey was 6 overall, but Herbert Jones for the Pelicans, 35 overall, averaged about 10 points a game, 4 rebounds a game.
Wasn't Josh Hart on there too? I thought Josh Hart was like a 9th overall pick or something like that.
Yeah, like 2 years ago. Yeah, but he's on the Pelicans also.
Yeah.
Then you had Davion Mitchell, number 9 overall pick. He's averaging about 12 a game with the Kings. Bones Highland for the Nuggets. Yeah. Bones from Richmond, from VCU, sorry. Number 26 overall, 10 points a game. Lately about 15 a game. Desunmu for the Bulls, number 38 overall. I mean, all these guys, when you look at the Kia rookie ladder that the NBA.com website puts out, you've got 12 guys here, including a lot that were above that were past the top 5 picks and that all had impacts, and you don't see a Corey Kispert's name on here. And you don't see, from previous drafts, you don't really necessarily see a Rui or those guys. They just aren't making the impact. They're not drawing attention. They're not putting up the numbers, and it's like, all right, yeah, maybe Denny will work out eventually. Well, eventually it could be forever with this team. You gotta do something, and we'll definitely get into it on a future episode on what this team needs to do. But we had to talk about it. Wizard season's done. No more recapping their crappy games, that's for sure. And then the last part of the rewind: DC United didn't play this weekend. They had this weekend off, but they will play Saturday at 7:30 against Austin. And again, they are 2-0-3. Let's talk a little baseball.
The Washington Nationals.
So, I talked about at the top of the show with the rewind, talked about the previous week, Mike, and I wanted to kind of break this down a little bit into kind of the pitchers and the offense, and we can kind of talk about, all right, what's working, what's not working, that sort of thing. I'm not necessarily going to go through every single one of these stats, but of course, through 4 games with Strasburg on the men, still he's not in. That means Petra Corbin is basically our ace, and then after him, you get a kind of a mix of guys: Josiah Gray, Johan Adone, Eric Fetty. I can't even remember who they have going tonight. I think it might be Annabelle. And it's just like you just it's a far cry from remember when we had Scherzer, Strasburg, and Corbin like all going. Actually, it looks like tonight is Rogers, Taylor Rogers for Josh Rogers. Sorry, there is a Taylor Rogers, but no, Josh Rogers is going tonight. The 27-year-old left-hander with about 14 games in the bigs. I remember him a little bit last year. So it just again goes to my point. This pitching rotation, Mike, is nowhere close to where we were 3 years ago, obviously the World Series team. And you look at some of these numbers that these guys put up over the weekend, and yeah, it's just one series. We're not going to make a giant deal out of it, but still, nobody could get to the 6th inning. I mean, Fetty was the only guy to get through 5. Everyone else was stuck in 4 innings, and I know it's early, and they're not trying to stretch guys out too much, but these are not great starting pitching numbers, Mike.
What's the point of saying that they're not going to stretch them out when the bullpen sucks too? I mean,
very true.
Now you have to remind me of this because I'm going mind blank right now for some reason. For the MLB draft, is it where you finish in the season,
yeah,
or
they don't do a lottery? Yeah.
Okay,
it's where you finish. Yeah.
Because no one ever watches the MLB draft. Everyone's like, "Oh, Adley Rutschman. Okay, who else is there?"
Right.
But you're just looking at it and thinking, this team. I might have gone way over my means.
Yeah, you guys thought I was crazy for saying this team may struggle to win like 50 games or 60 games. Like, you look at this team, or 70, I think was the number we were looking at. It's like, I don't know if this team will win 60. I mean, it's so bad.
You can already put my loss in the book there. Thank God. Thank God I didn't find a future sweat that night of the first game. But my God, I mean, you're looking at Austin Voth. I mean, we've been talking about that over the last 4 days with Austin Voth. I mean, this guy. I mean, again, we talked about Dan Snyder last week about having 1,000 lives. And this guy, Austin Voth, just around all the time.
AJ Cole. I mean, remember AJ Cole would hang around this team for a decade.
I got him mixed up all the time.
Yeah, and it was always like, AJ Cole is not good. Why is he still here? And it was just like, we just need an arm. We need a body. And that's when you know you're in trouble, when you're just like, we just need a body in the bullpen. Right. And that Austin Voth is that. He's just a body.
Yeah, I mean, he literally has pitched 4 outs and has more hits than outs. I mean, it's very difficult to go out there and just play this poorly on the mound. And you're looking at a guy that we have loathed for, years now since he left, because the sole fact that his last couple of years were not great. Sean Doolittle, he has 2 pitches.
He was one of the best pitchers this weekend, Mike.
That's what I'm saying. Two innings and 0 hits.
I'll tell you, Sunday, Doolittle came out. He threw an inning relief. I mean, he got a strikeout or 2. He was hyped up after the last one. He turned and yelled, and he was the most exciting part of this weekend. On the mound was Sean Doolittle, and he was throwing 95. His fastball average, I think it was average 94 this weekend. He threw 20 pitches, 17 of them were fastballs, and nobody could touch him. Nobody could touch him. I mean, literally, he threw 3 changeups and 17 fastballs, and at 94, 95, nobody could touch him this weekend. He was one of the better relievers. Finnegan as well also had a great weekend, a couple innings, and gave up no hits. Mm-hmm. Besides those 2 guys, when you look at some of these pitching numbers, I mean, it's rough. There's nobody. I mean, even some of the guys that only gave up a hit or so walked another 2-3 guys and got guys on base. I mean, besides Finnegan and Doolittle, you look at the starters and you look at the bullpen, and you're like, where are we going to find a shutdown guy? Because none of these guys are shutdown guys besides, so far, those 2.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing about this pitching staff is that obviously once Strasburg or Max left, now Strasburg is on the men pretty much for the most part. Who knows when he's going to come back?
Yeah.
The starting pitching rotation has a huge gap in it. And that's why they went out and got Josiah Gray. I think that was Rizzo's biggest thought last year was, if I'm going to trade my 2 biggest names, I guess you could say, in this, besides Juan Soto, on this team, in this organization, I need a pitcher. And Josiah Gray, we kind of went back and forth briefly that his stock is kind of down after the 8 hits, and I totally understand where you're coming from, where it's not a great outing. I mean, he didn't have a lot of walks, but at the same time, if he had 7 Ks, it might be a little bit different. But when you're going out there and you're letting the home run balls and you're letting bloop singles or in the gaps, stuff like that, you can't go out there and expect this guy to be that ace right away. The guy's still young. You need him to go out there and develop this year because his team's going nowhere. But that's the biggest thing is this staff, just like you said, is so different from when it was one of the most predominant staffs in all of baseball when they were in top 5 of the starting rotation. I mean, you're looking at Corbin coming out of the bullpen, which again, like you said a few weeks ago, oh, everyone's saying that ruined his career. It didn't ruin his career. Let's be honest here. But
right.
It's just so hilarious that you see how far of a fall from grace this team has gone. And that's the problem right now is, the pitching is bad, but I think, honestly, we should move to the offense because the offense has been worse. The offense scored 6 runs in 4 games.
You're not wrong. That's
the Indians scored 17 yesterday.
Yeah, they did. Hey, the Guardians, get it right. Guardians have a couple studs, I will say. I mean, always at the beginning of the season is when I kind of jump around MLB TV and watch a bunch of different teams, get familiar with them. And Guardians have a couple pretty solid guys, and they put up 17 on the Royals with Bobby Witt Jr. and all those guys. But yeah, I'm with you. Corbin's got to be better. They all got to be better. The weird thing about all these starts, and I know you didn't get a chance to watch a ton of it, but they all started okay. Like they looked pretty good. Like Josiah Gray threw like 3 innings, looked really good. Right. Corbin, I think, it was great through, 3 innings. The runs didn't start coming in until later. All these guys that started off, like, I was like, oh, man, we're going to have a day here. And then by the time that 4th or 5th inning hits, they just implode. And then we go to the bullpen, which is even worse. But, yeah, let's talk about the offense, Mike. So, oh, boy. As you said,
wait, woo boy or ooh boy?
Oh man, I'd love some woo boy right now. you know, yeah, I got very upset, and I love woo boy. I'm not trying to crap on them, but Mike, nothing worse than when you do an Uber Eats or whatever, and the food shows up, and you open that box and you go, "This is not what I ordered." I ordered a sando and everything, and they send me like 2 tenders. And it was like, look, I'm going to eat this because I mean, it's chicken. Of course, like it's still going to be good, but I wanted the sando. I wanted the whole sandwich. I wanted the coleslaw. I wanted all that, the hot chicken sandwich experience. And they gave me like 2 level 4 tenders or whatever. And it's like, all right, or I think it was 3 to be fair. But still, it was like, this is not it. This is not what I ordered. I felt pretty, I was pissed. I got the full refund though, of course.
Whoa, really? With the tendies?
With the tendies. So Uber Eats made me, and I haven't had to do this in a long time. So they made you take a picture of the food and like send it to them in the app or whatever. And I did that. I took a picture of the tenders, and they're like, all right, here's $28 or whatever the hell it was. It's always way more than you should be paying.
Wait. Could you sit there and actually like rearrange the chicken and say like, these are the 2 orders that I got?
I bet. Here's the thing. I bet it's one of those things where you could get away with it a few times, and then like if you start trying to push the envelope a little bit and do it too many times, they flag your account. Like this guy is clearly trying to scam us. like you order chicken tenders and you like go into your fridge and like pull out like salami and be like, "This is what I got." And they're like, "What are you talking about? We don't even serve that. We don't even have that in our restaurant." That'd be great. Well, regardless, woo boy, because this offense was bad this weekend. And look, we're not overreacting. We're just reacting to what data we have. Like this is what we have. So we're not going to say like, oh, this means this team is not going to be able to get hits all year, but it probably does. We just mean through 4 games, the offense was bad. Mike, the only bright spots of this offense right now, Josh Bell, pretty good series, 4 for 13, had a bomb, couple RBI, couple walks, 308 through the series. Decent. I mean, would you love more? Sure. Trust me, this is one of the best you've got. Juan Soto, he was okay, especially through the first couple games. He had the home run in the first game, walked a couple times. Besides that, I will say Juan Soto didn't do anything Juan Soto-esque. He'll be okay. I'm sure he'll still have a really good season. The only other guys offensively I want to point out on the positive side, Keeper Ruiz, 4 for 11 in the series, a double, 2 Ks. he's gonna be a middle of the lineup guy for this team, hopefully all season long, because he's solid. I mean, I really like him behind the dish. I like him at the plate. A lot to like there. Let's get into the bad, Mike. There's some bad numbers here. Our
Ooh.
guy Victor Robles, Mike, 0 for 8, 4 Ks, no walks. That's not good. That's not good. But I know your favorite guy is the third one down, Mike. Our starting third baseman, Mikal Franco.
1 for 13.
Yeah.
4 Ks. And when you have an average below 100, that's a huge problem. And now, yes, it's been 4 games. Let's be honest here. But we prefaced this literally, what was it, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, maybe both, that this guy was raking with the Phillies for a little while. And then all of a sudden, he
got cut from the Orioles, last year. Like when the Orioles let you go, and no shame at our pal Joe Deck, who's an Orioles fan, but he knows where they stand. When the Orioles cut you, you got to start re-examining your life.
Yeah. You have to really think about, am I going to keep playing or go to a front office role, or become an agent, or a realtor?
And look, the funny thing is, like, he is only in this position because Carter Kieboom got hurt. I mean, I can say with almost certainty I don't even know if Carter Kieboom would have much better numbers than this.
Yeah, let's be honest here. I mean, when you're seeing this team strike out with the consistency that they have so far. Now, yes, you said Juan Soto. I don't think there's a really big problem with Juan Soto because of the sole fact that I think it was last year maybe or the year before where he started out with a start like this.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he came in and won like a batting title.
Right.
Where he goes and hits like 666 in the next like 5 games.
He'll be fine. He's an incredible player. He'll be fine.
This is the problem is that you have these, random names that no one knows, like a D Strange Gordon, which people might know from 5 years ago when he was on the Marlins.
Yeah.
But he didn't really have a great couple games. Then Riley Adams, he only played 1 game, but that's still not that great. 0 for 3 for 2 Ks. And you're just looking at Victor Robles and saying, 0 for 8, dude. 0 for 8. You literally struck out more times than you almost got struck out as many times as half the team that was in the starting rotation.
More than the games he's played in. I mean, 4 strikeouts, 3 games. Like, he's averaging over a strikeout a game now. I mean, that's bad.
But the thing about Victor Ruiz, or not Victor, is it Victor? What am I saying?
Keeper.
Who's Victor Ruiz? That's not a boxer or a UFC fighter.
It sounds like it would be.
Yeah. Anyways, besides the point. Keibert Ruiz. I don't know why I said Victor Ruiz. Keibert Ruiz, though, 4 for 11. At one point, he was 4 for 7. I was like, man, this guy is going to be fun to watch. Now, no one's really going to think about him because, he's a catcher, and when certain guys were catchers like Matt Wieters, like everyone was like, oh, he's okay, he's going to do okay. But then all of a sudden, he kind of sucked. But Keibert Ruiz, a young guy, I'm excited to see him. But so far, these offensive numbers are just putrid. And to be honest with you, I'm just taking back I'm eating a lot of crow because I had some faith in this team, thinking, you know what, we're not going to have a great first, season or not first season, but first little while in the season, like first quarter of the season. But then all of a sudden, you're seeing this team just go out there and 6 runs against the Mets, where they didn't have Jacob deGrom starting. No. It's not like they had deGrom, Syndergaard, and Max Scherzer starting. I mean,
Tyler Megill started the first opening day, and this is a guy who, I mean, you could poll 100 baseball fans, and 98 of them have never heard of this guy. And he started opening day, and he pitched well against us. Juan Soto was the only guy that scored any runs. It's not. Yeah, you're right. It's not like the Mets have the greatest rotation in baseball or anything.
And that's my problem with this team already. And it's starting to frustrate me as it is because I don't want to sit there and say, you know what, got to bet against the Nats tonight. Yeah. Got to keep betting again. Because
they might win you a lot of money this year, though, Mike, if you bet against the Nats.
Well, yeah. And I bet, 3 bets. I think actually I've had so many bad beats lately with one beat or one beat every single parlay, which sucks. But I mean, literally, I told you about the Golden State Warriors. They literally were up by 9 points or whatever at halftime, and they win by 6 against a terrible team. I forgot what team it was. They're so bad.
Right.
But that's just the funny thing is that you're looking at this offensive squad, and literally, I said it myself. I said the Indians, but the Guardians scored 17 runs yesterday. They scored 10 runs today in the day game, 27 runs in 2 games. We scored 6 in 4. Yeah. So we're heavily behind. And yes, they play the Royals. The Royals suck. But come on, let's be honest here. the offense. We have a little bit better offense than some cases than the Guardians do. But yeah,
I don't know anymore. I don't know if this team is even better than the Orioles, honestly, at this point. Like I watched
that Beltway series.
I watched a lot of the O's game today. They're playing the Brewers. I don't know what the score is now, but they were winning when I checked when I was watching. And I'll tell you,
2-0 currently.
Still, wow. Okay, yeah. So they're still winning. Good for them. And the bottom of the eighth. So yeah, I'm telling you, this Orioles team might have a better offense than this Nats team. I mean, you look at the lineup on paper and you're like, all right, Josh Bell, he can bring it. Juan Soto, of course, he can bring it. Nelson Cruz, I will say, kind of a disappointment to start. Now, he did have a good game on Sunday and Saturday. He did hit his first home run. He has struck out 4 times. He hasn't reached a base once. The number that actually was really striking to me when I was going through here is the walks, Mike. Nobody's walking. Cruz, 0 walks. Franco, 0 walks. Cesar Hernandez, 0 walks. Soto has a couple. Bell has a couple. Alcides Escobar, 1 for 10, 5 strikeouts, 0 walks. Robles, 0 walks. Ruiz, 0 walks. Lane Thomas, 1. Yadiel Hernandez, 0. D. Gordon, 0. I mean, when your offense is this bad, you got to find other ways to get on base. And walking and having a good eye at the dish is something that you can obviously use to your advantage if you are that type of player. And right now, this team has nobody that's getting on base via the walk, it seems like. Besides, I mean, obviously, they're going to pitch around a Josh Bell or Juan Soto because they can hit a bomb. But if you're Alcides Escobar, they're not worried about you going deep. You got to be able to find a way to get on base because, yeah, bad games from him, too. This is just ugly. These are just very ugly numbers.
I mean, if you're Davey Martinez, though, you got to look at just the point you made. If you want to be competitive, and now I'm not going to say Davey should be on the hot seat or anything like that.
Right.
But, because of
this
how
year he kind of gets off scotch-free.
Right.
How bad they are.
Exactly. Just cashing the paycheck. And I think if you want to be competitive in this league for this year, you got to play small ball. You got to do different things. You got to try to do the money ball situation where you got to say, hey, take a few pitches. If they're going to give you a strike, give them a strike, or whatever the heck Brad Pitt said in the movie. Right. I forgot exactly the words.
That was a great Brad Pitt impression. Actually. For a second, I thought I was on the Zoom with Brad Pitt.
I sounded like Jonah Hill more than Brad Pitt. I look like Jonah Hill more than Brad Pitt. But that's just the thing is you got to play small ball, and I love playing small ball. Obviously, me and you coach together, and I'm all about bunting, stealing a base here or there, taking a single, I'm always about station to station, move first to second to third, just keep going one by one and try to be in these games because you can't go out there, score 1 run, score 0 runs, score, basically just suck. And all of a sudden think, we just didn't have it today, guys, because Juan Soto didn't have a grand slam or Josh Bell didn't hit a 3-run bomb. You have to go out there and play small ball. You have to make sure this team goes out there and be competitive because of the sole fact, because if this team's not competitive, this town ain't going to the games. No. You're going to have guys out there from Mets or from City Field saying like, boo, the Nats suck, man.
We're getting back to those days, Mike. We're getting back to the days where the stadium would be half full of Phillies fans or half full of the Mets fans.
You ever been to Broad Street?
I saw that, yeah.
You like Bryce Harper? Thanks for Bryce Harper.
It's going to be it's just going to be filled. Now, the one NL East team that the fans never show up is the Marlins, luckily. But you're going to get a lot of Phillies fans, a lot of Mets fans. It's going to be a rough summer for Nats fans at the going to the games because they're just going to be surrounded by visitor fans. That's what it's going to be.
Did you like my accent? Was that a good accent?
That was pretty good. I would rate
New York
it
and Philly were about the same. They're about the
7.5 out of 10.
Oh, wow, 7.5.
By the way, we did see, and I'm sure you saw this as well, we did see the whole thing about the Lerners considering selling the team that came out today. It's being discussed. It's still kind of like, it's not, first of all, it's not like decided. It said the report was that the Lerners are considering selling the team. We'll see what happens there. We're not going to break that down here today. Just something to keep an eye on. Selling the team, it's one of those things where it's like, all right, well, what does that mean if a new ownership comes in here? Well, for us, hopefully what that means is gone would be the days of guys walking, the Bryce Harpers and Anthony Rendones and like those guys leaving when we could have signed them into a long contract. I don't know. If Jeff Bezos buys this team and pays Juan Soto to stay here for 10 years, then I'll be happy. But otherwise, I don't really care.
I'd hope Bezos pays him to be his son.
Right.
Does something like that. But looking at the runs real fast before we move on, the runs so far, and obviously I think that a lot of games obviously haven't been played as of right now. So the Guardians have 4 games and some other teams don't have that many, but you're looking at the runs scored. Okay, the Guardians lead the American League with 28. And again, this is the universal DH now, so everyone has a fair shot. 28 for the Guardians, 23 for the Rangers, 20 for Houston, 20 for Toronto. Baltimore has 4 in 3 games. 4. Okay. Your Detroit Tigers have 8. Okay, even though they had a really nice win. And then you're moving on to the National League. Okay. The bottom 2 teams are 2 NL East teams. You got 9 with the Marlins, 9 with the Brewers, and the Brewers are currently losing to the Orioles 2-0. And then you got 8 right now for the Nats. I misspoke. I said 6. It's 8.
8.
Now, that's just, that's pitiful. You're scoring 2 runs a game.
Games,
That's embarrassing. And that's just something that, again, like you said, if they're going to play these low scoring games where they're not going to be able to score a lot of runs, you got to go out there and change your system. Because right now, thinking about the glory days like the Orioles did with Adam Jones and Mark Trumbo and all these guys, that's not going to happen with this team. This team just doesn't have the power like those teams do, or did, I should say. And they got to play station to station. They got to do something similar to that kind of methodology, because if you don't do something like that, you're going to lose a ton of games, and it's going to be very embarrassing.
It's going to be a rough one. We told you that. We warned you. Again, go in with no expectations. That's what you got to do this season. No expectations, no dreams of winning. That's for sure. Let's talk a little hockey real quick.
The Washington Capitals.
For the Caps, I just wanted to briefly talk about, because I know this is something that you've been watching closely, Mike, and that is the playoff positioning and trying to figure out the matchups and who do you want and who do you not want. 10 games left to go here in the regular season. The Caps are going to make the playoffs. We kind of know that at this point, but where they end up is the bigger question, whether it's, which wildcard spot and who above them is going to, the shuffling and all that sort of things. So where in your eyes is the most ideal first round matchup then, as we look at kind of where teams might end up?
I think when you're looking at who we would like to face, we have the better record against Carolina. Even though Carolina and Florida both are, our record's not bad. We've actually played them very well. We won't be playing actually Carolina, that I looked at obviously recently, because of the sole fact that the Florida Panthers have 108. Even though there is some games left, you don't think that they're going to catch 6 points, the Carolina Hurricanes, against the Panthers when it comes to the number 1 overall seed. But for me, honestly, I would love to play the Panthers because I think they're inconsistent. I just don't think that team is that great. They have a great goal differential, but you're not going to go out there in a playoff series and score 6 goals a game. It's just not going to happen. Yeah. Is Vanacek kind of struggling a little bit? Yeah. Is Ilya Samsonov not the best goalie in the world? Yeah. But all you need is one team to go out there one goalie to go out there and stand on his head and do something for you on the defensive end. Yes, our defense hasn't been great, but I just think that this team can go out there and beat the Panthers. I don't think any analyst out there is going to sit there and say, you know what, I'm going to pick the Florida Panthers as the winner of the NHL Stanley Cup. I haven't heard anybody say that.
No.
I just think that there's so many teams out there that have a shot, to win it in the Eastern Conference, that it's going to be fun to watch, because obviously we just took down 3 playoff teams. We beat the Lightning, as I mentioned earlier. We beat the Pens, and we beat the Bruins. So right now, you just got to hope that they stay healthy and they stay hot, because overall, I don't really care who we play. I prefer the Panthers, but if it comes down to a different team because somehow the Pens are struggling or something like that, and we move past them, then so be it. But right now, I'm hoping we play the Panthers, because I just don't think they're that consistent whatsoever.
The final schedule for this team looks like this. You've got the Flyers, the Leafs, the Canadiens, Colorado, Vegas, Arizona, Toronto, 2 games back-to-back. Not back-to-back. There's a day in between against the Islanders, and then you finish off with the Rangers on April 29th. So obviously a little West Coast swing there when you're heading to Colorado, Vegas, and Arizona. Most games being on the East Coast. Your final home game is Tuesday, April 26th against the Isle, so your last chance to see them in the regular season at home, and they'll finish on the road, as I mentioned, in New York. Seems like kind of an up and down schedule, but one of the things we talked about earlier on text was this team, especially with this past week, they seem to be peaking at the right time, and that's what you want to do heading into the playoffs. That's what it is in hockey. A lot of it's momentum, and a lot of it is who is hot, who's got the hot goaltender, who's scoring and things like that. You got a guy like Tom Wilson putting up points left and right. It seems like this team. I don't want to get my hopes up too much, but Mike, they seem like they could be a little dangerous in the playoffs.
I mean, any team I think right now in the Eastern Conference could be dangerous. That's just my point on it, because the sole fact that Tampa Bay, you can never get away from their offense. Pittsburgh, They have Sidney Crosby. He's healthy as of right now, and they have other players on that team that can go out there. And, Tristan Jarry has been great this year. But you're looking at it, and I just think that the last 3 games, yes, Nick Say on the 2 empty netters against Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh said, you know what, screw it. We're already 2 goals down. There's like a minute and a half left. Let's do it another. It didn't really matter. So take out those 2. We scored 12 in the last 3, okay, against really good opponents, especially in Pittsburgh. That was a huge deal as well. But before that was our worst game against Carolina and our worst game against Minnesota. It was 11-2. We got outscored in those 2 games. So when you're looking at it, these 3 games that we just had, and as you mentioned, that I think that we're going to be, going to this thing full engines ago, because the sole fact that, hey, we did struggle a little bit. We were 2-2-2. Like, it was a roller coaster the last 6 games before that. So it was like 2 losses, 2 wins, 2 losses. Now we got 3 games going. We need to make sure that we take care of business against some of these teams, against some of the teams that are not making the playoffs. But you're looking at the teams, for instance, like the Rangers. I don't want to play the Rangers because the Rangers hate us and we hate them. But I think that the Rangers just want to beat us into the dirt or into the ice because of last year's season ender. So, hopefully we don't have to play them. Now, I'm not going to scare away if we do, because I still trust Tom Wilson, Alex Ovechkin, Nick Backstrom, all those guys. But I just think that, like you said, we're going into the end of this hot. We need to stay hot and just keep churning the train here, I guess you could say, or is that even the right word? Churning the butter here. I don't even know, man.
Butter on the train on the tracks. Speaking of,
I'm not having the best day right now.
Speaking of hot, another guy that's been hot pretty lately is Lars Eller. That's another guy to keep an eye on. He's actually had a pretty nice week, and keep an eye on him going forward, especially with injuries and that sort of stuff going on. Let's hit up the final lap, a chance to cover some bigger stories in sports. 90 seconds on the clock. Here we go. Frank Vogel out as Lakers head coach, Mike. After 3 seasons, he is done.
Is LeBron the worst coachable person in this planet?
It might be.
I mean, he just gets everyone fired. He's gotten like 5 coaches fired.
Oh, it's unbelievable. Yeah, you don't want to be his coach at this point. And hey, the Wiz, maybe keep an eye out. Maybe Frank Vogel could end up being obviously they're not going to fire Wes Unseld Jr. after 1 season, but could be a guy you could have maybe later on. Scotty Scheffler, who was the favorite to win the Masters, did exactly that. He won the Masters, Mike.
I have a lot of gripes about the Masters, but Scotty Scheffler, very, very good last 4 wins out of the last about 8 weeks or so. It's been unbelievable what he's been doing on the run.
We'll get your thoughts on the Masters after this segment here. NBA play-in tourney. The matchups are set here. Again, these are for the play-in games. You got the Cavs and the Nets. The Nets sure fell hard. Hornets and Hawks. Clippers and T-Wolves. Spurs and Pellies. Any of these teams interest you, Mike?
Not really.
No, I didn't think so. And then last but not least, of course, the sad news everybody knows by now, Dwayne Haskins, of course, passing away at 24 years old after being hit by a dump truck on the highway after his car broke down. Really sad story there, kind of a shocker as the news came out. And obviously here in D.C., had an impact because he was the quarterback of this team for a little bit. And, you never talk bad about a guy when he's just recently passed away. Of course, Schefter caught some heat by saying like, I think on his tweet it was something about like how he struggled in Washington and things like that. It's like that's not really the tweet you do when you're talking about a guy dying. Like we can have that conversation, sure, not the day the guy dies or the day after the guy dies. Like in a few months or weeks, if you want to talk about Dwayne Haskins' tenure in DC and was it great or not, sure, of course we can have that conversation. But like, geez, like just give him a nice tweet, Schefter. What are you doing?
Yeah, it was kind of weird. Now, at first when I read it, I didn't really think it was that big of a deal because, it's a fact. It's true.
Right,
but
right.
When you look at the circumstance of the guy just died, like relax a little bit. So he ended up deleting it and going back and editing it and saying like, getting drafted #1 by the Washington football team or something like that. Then he was like, all right, let's be honest here. And that, the one thing is he's still a young guy and he was actually down in Florida or wherever it was, I believe, down there practicing. He was supposed to compete with Mitch Trubisky and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so it's definitely sad to see. So, hearts out to his family and his friends.
It sucks. And I don't mean to make an awkward transition, but I do want to talk briefly about the Masters real quick because I know obviously that's what you spent 4 days doing is watching Tiger and the Masters. And do you think Tiger performed better than your expectations and most folks' expectations? Was he about where you thought he was going to be? Was he under where you thought he was going to be? Because from my understanding, and I only caught little bits here and there, is he had a pretty dang good weekend. Like he had a pretty good tournament for the most part, it seems like.
Yeah, so the first day, obviously, he shot 71. He did lip out. I believe it was on the 5th hole, so he could have even shot better because it was a beautiful approach shot in the par 3. But I think he played as well as you probably think he could. I mean, he's usually a really good green reader, but then you look at it and he couldn't even. I mean, I could bend my knees, and I've had 2 major knee surgeries too. I could bend my knees farther than he can, but I understand the mobility factor where you can see him limping at certain times, different things like that. So it was fun to watch him, even though he didn't compete to the maximum level that he wants to. The one bad thing that I did see today was that he's committed to the Open Championship, but not the U.S. Open and the PGA. So little like about that because those are 2 sandwiched in. But I don't know, man. It's I wish he could play in all 4, but you got to give the guy a little bit of a break.
And then Scheffler wins it all. I mean, some people were saying this Masters was boring or whatever because the favorite wins. I mean, still, it seemed like there was some good competition at the top. I mean, I know Rory had a pretty good tournament. He was right there in the mix. I watched him a little bit on Sunday. My guy JT, unfortunately, had some trouble. He had some good audio clips, though, of some struggles that he had off the tee. Anyone else that interesting from the tournament?
Well, John Rahm obviously didn't. He didn't actually play that well. So he did play decent in the last round. He was the ultimate favorite. I think at plus 200. Scheffler, I think, was like plus 600 or 800 or something like that. But that's because he's the #1 player in the world, and he also has won 3 of his last 4 tournaments. They said. So I don't know, man. It was kind of up and down day. Me and my girl were actually just watching it the entire time and just saying like the few featured groups, and we're watching them the entire weekend pretty much. We woke up, we watched it, and once it was done, we pretty much just sat there and watched 600 Pound Life, and then went to bed. And then we woke up and watched it again. But I mean, overall, I think it was a pretty good mass tournament. I mean, the only problem is, and I'll get through these gripes really quickly because I know we have to get to our other stuff.
Sure.
The problems that I have, one embarrassing thing that I sent you, where I hate when they are walking off the golf course after just having this mind F of the golf course of a lifetime in Augusta National,
right?
Where the greens are sloped like Mount Everest, and you have to walk uphill apparently every single hole for some reason, and it just makes no sense. Where you have like Rick, over here, or Robert or something like that, that's 67 years old, that's putting his hand out to like high five Tiger Woods. Like, he doesn't want to high five your hand.
So weird.
Just because you are a member at freaking Belmont Country Club in Ashburn doesn't mean that you're on the same level as Tiger Woods. Like, it's like I loved it because the one guy in the yellow, he literally just stuck his hand out and was like, "Hey, Tiger," and like, "Great round, buddy." It's his hands like
so
shaking, and
pathetic.
then he like puts a fist out like, "Oh, thanks a lot, appreciate you dissing me there." it just really pisses me off. I don't know why.
No, I'm with you. It's kind of pathetic, and it's like, look, it's one thing if like you and Tiger Woods are passing each other, and like there's no like rope separating you, and it's not the middle of a tournament or something like that. It's like, yeah, throw out your hand to shake his hand or fist bump or whatever. It's like, yeah, cool. But the old guy sticking their hand out when he finishes up on the 8th hole, and he's just walking to the next hole, and it's just weird. If you're a kid, yeah, of course. Like if kids are throwing out high fives, yeah, go for it. But when you're a grown man doing it, it's just weird. And not
like,
only
dude,
grown man, but these guys are like 50 plus doing it. I mean, it's just weird.
This guy's 67 years old and he's retired from the Air Force, and he just like loves Tiger for some reason, and is over there just trying to like his hands all like shaking and stuff like that, and all this. It's just so like weird. It's like, oh my gosh. My last one is, who Dude Perfect is, right?
Yeah.
That irritated the hell out of me because
it was embarrassing.
Because Bryson DeChambeau thinks he's like this, like God that is out there taking the Dude Perfect guys onto Augusta National, which I would give my left leg up to go play Augusta National and hit 117 on it, and then be out of breath trying to walk the amen corner. Okay. The problem is that those guys are out there hitting with baseball bats and throwing the stupid vortexes and all that. Shout out to Vortex. I love Vortex. But they're throwing all this stuff. It's like, dude, like it's like sacred ground. I mean, those guys were literally walking and giving their life up for golf, trying to win that damn green jacket, whatever shade of green it is. And these guys are out there throwing stupid things you throw at a freaking city beach. Like, it just made no sense to me, man. I was, oh my God. And I watched the entire video because first of all, I wanted to see Bryson lose, because I should have bet my entire life on Bryson missing the cut ever since he said, oh, it's a par 67 for me. Like, okay, Yankee Doodle, why don't you go out there and hit the Sterling Boulevard par 3 course and work on your irons?
I'll see you there. Bryson.
Oh man,
don't hit the houses, Bryson.
It did not tickle my fancy for certain things.
No, yeah.
I had fun watching it though.
yeah. Overall seemed like a good tournament. Let's hit up the trivia questions here. I'll just throw this one out to you first. This is going to be an over-under, Mike. So the Tigers in 2003 had one of their worst seasons ever. I'm going to give you a win total, and you're going to tell me if their actual win total was over or under this number. 45 wins.
And you said this was 2003?
2003. This was back when the Tigers were really, really bad in 03, and then they got like Pudge Rodriguez, and they started doing good, and they were in the World Series like 2 or 3 years later. So, but this was a bad team. So 45 obviously is the over/under. So that means they're pretty bad. So 45. Are we? Did they actually win more or fewer games than 45?
I think it's a trick question. I'm going to go under, and I'm going to say 42.
It's 43. You were right on track, though. 43 wins.
Damn, it would have been better if I got it right.
Because I believe that it was 4. I mean, the math obviously lines up, but I think it was 43 and 113 was that year, and it was 43 and 119. That's what it would have been to add up to 162. I think that adds up. Yeah. Regardless, it was one of the worst seasons in baseball history. It was so bad.
Because something popped out to me right there when you said it. I was like, man, I remember them going literally in the 40s at some point. That's nuts. That's unbelievable.
And then they made it. I mean, like I said, they made it to the World Series in 2006. So imagine you win 43 games, and then 3 years later, you're in the World Series. Now, they didn't win it, but they were there. They were there.
They were there. All righty, here we go. So my DC Sports trivia question for you is, in 2003, what Giants quarterback did Bruce Smith take down to become the NFL's all-time sack leader? Okay, and I will give you a hint for this, because the only reason I'm asking this is because I can give an easy hint. So he is on TV now, not just on ESPN. It's on a network that usually you would see late at night.
Late at night?
Late at night, and you might not be able to sleep. So you turn this on, you're like, I could probably fall asleep looking at these people make these things.
What? These people make these things late at night.
Think about molding things into birthday celebration things.
What are you talking about? That's not a great hint.
I can't say that.
Quarterback. This is a well-known quarterback, I assume.
Well known in the sense of he wasn't really well known because he wasn't that great, but I would say that he has a famous last name.
Does his last name? I did actually. The funny thing is when we said 2003, I did have a guy in mind.
He did not play for the Detroit Tigers.
No. He did not. Yeah. He lost 119. No, I did have a guy enter my mind. And I don't know why, but it's calling to me. Does his last name start with a C?
No.
Okay, I'm out. Okay. I was gonna say Kerry Collins.
He hosts. Well, I think Kerry Collins is 05.
So I was close.
He hosts baking shows.
Baking shows. No idea.
Jesse Palmer.
All right, getting there. Yeah. Okay. All right, Jesse Palmer. Cool.
That's your claim to fame.
Let's hit up the money line. Sponsored by DraftKings. A chance to give our picks, and oh boy, it's been rough. I am 4-8. Mike is 5-7.
Yikes.
Has not been good picks here recently, but we're looking to get back on track, and that starts here with these picks. NBA play-in games are starting, Mike, I believe on Tuesday. So I've got a couple play-in picks. So the Nets obviously fell further than they should have. A lot of it was injuries and not playing with those couple Kyrie playing half the games and all that stuff. The Cavs are a nice, fun, young team. I think the Nets are like, look, let's blow these guys out and prove that, like, hey, we are a contender if they are. So they're gonna right now the line's 8 points. I'm gonna say they're gonna win over that. And then my dog. I'm gonna say the Clips plus 2.5 against the T-Wolves. I mean, look, the T-Wolves basically is Karl Anthony Towns. Like they don't. Yeah. I mean, yeah, they've got a couple other pieces there, but it's like it's all on him. And I'm gonna say the Clips are gonna be able to neutralize him a little bit. And I'm gonna pick the dog there plus 2.5. The Clips of L.A. My boys Reggie Jackson and Luke Kennard. It's a Pistons reunion over there in L.A.
I'm kind of surprised that the Clippers are actually dogs in this one, but because of the sole fact that Paul George is back. Yeah, and Paul George has actually been playing really well lately. But
I'll take that 2.5 all day.
I would too. So my lock is actually going to go and swerve a little bit because usually our locks are usually favorites. I'm going to go with San Antonio plus 5 at New Orleans. San Antonio, the Spurs have covered the spread in 10 of the last 11. 7 of those 10 being on the road.
Love that.
So
love that.
When you're looking at that, that's pretty good trend in the right direction. But obviously, playoffs are a different animal, so we shall see.
Plus, they still have Popovich. I mean, they still have one of the best coaches of all time. You got to think they have a shot here.
Yeah, you hope. I mean, you hope so. Obviously, it's going to be a great game because both teams are under 500. But they're both going to win the championship. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. But I'm going to go with plus 5 and see if I can ride the ship here. My dogs. I'm going with Real Madrid. It's not really a dog pick. It's for dog money because you can get plus 140 on this. My winner outright is Real Madrid in Tuesday's Champions League game. Mainly because the sole fact that Real Madrid has dominated Chelsea in the first round. I mean, it was literally a domination. Chelsea was making mistakes left and right. Karim Benzema looks like he's 27 years old, and the guy's like 52. Right. I mean, I used to get so pissed at him back in the day playing FIFA, and now all of a sudden he's just like playing the best soccer of his life, or football, if you want to call it, of his life. So overall, I'm going to go with Real Madrid plus 140 to win outright on Tuesday in the Champions League, to win outright, not a tie or any of that BS. I'm going to win outright for Hala Madrid.
There we go. Shout out to my Sunderland boys who back-to-back weekends of game-winning goal in the late minutes of the game. They're surviving. 6th seed right now. 6th seed with about 5 games to go. They only 3 through 6 get into the playoffs after the first 2 get their automatic promotion. So fingers crossed. Another episode in the books here. Again, a lot of baseball to happen this week, as well as some important Caps hockey. Wiz season's done, so we won't be talking about them for a bit. And then, obviously, any Commanders news comes up, we'll talk about it. Obviously, this is important as the NFL draft is approaching. And what are the Commanders going to do there? That's going to be a big question, and we'll definitely get into it. I think one of our return shows from the break that we took, I feel like was breaking down like the picks from the draft last year. I think. Like I feel like, or maybe that was going into camp. Maybe that's all it was. I feel like there was a show where we really like dove into the draft picks from that draft.
Yeah, it was something with that. But we'll try to, obviously, when the Caps have their playoff situation, we'll try to get
Well, maybe do a post game or something from one of those.
We'll do a post game and maybe have a guest on, maybe have Andrew Gillis on, and maybe not have technical difficulties this time.
Sure.
That were not on our end.
Follow the Twitter because we'll keep you up to date on post games at the DC crossover, and that would be a great time to download the app too, the Contender app, Contender with the K. Because my guess is Mike and I will be doing something post game for Caps when come playoff time, because it's the only DC team really that's competing in the playoffs. So we got to give them some time for sure. And follow, of course, Mike on Twitter at Cerrone16.
Hit that TikTok up, peeps.
The TikTok. Let's see. The handle is at DC_crossover underscore podcasts. We appreciate you listening to the show. We will see you next week. Another episode of the DC crossover.